Rails to Elie. This is the story of how the railway came to Elie and the east coast of Fife. Railway mania was an economic bubble in the 1840s that involved a railway development frenzy and a speculative onrush in the purchase of shares in railway companies. Like the dot-com bubble of the late 1990s, railway mania was a result of over-exuberance towards the business prospects of a disruptive innovation. Though railways are now part of everyday life, they were once every bit as revolutionary as the internet was when it was first introduced. As railway stock soared to astounding heights, railway companies massively overbuilt thousands of miles of railway lines throughout the UK. When the railway mania bubble eventually burst, many railway companies went out of business, investors were ruined, and enormous debts were left throughout the country. It is against this background that the railway came to Elie and the Fife Coast at the tail end of this period. A succession of independent companies built the route round the picturesque Fife Coast. The first section of the line to open was that from Lookers Junction to St Andrews. The 4.75 mile long line from Lookers Junction to St Andrews was authorised as the Independent St Andrews Railway following an Act of the 3rd of July 1851 and was opened throughout on the 1st of July 1852. The line was engineered by Thomas Bouch, who was later to achieve notoriety as the designer of the first and ill-fated Tay Bridge, which opened for passenger services on the 1st of June 1878. More about Mr. Bouch later. The first of the southern sections, from the main line at Thornton Junction to Leven, was built by the Leven Railway and opened on the 3rd of July 1854. The line was built by the Edinburgh, Perth and Dundee Railway. The East of Fife Railway took the line on to Kilconquhar. The East of Fife Railway to Kilconquhar was opened on the 8th of July 1857. Kilconquhar was the terminus of the line until extended by the Leven and East Fife Railway Company to Anstruther Wester. The extension to Anstruther Wester, with intermediate stations at Elie, St Monans and Pittenweem, opened on the 1st of September 1863. However, it would be another 20 years before the line between St Andrews and Anstruther via Crail was opened. The line was extended via Crail and Kingsbarns to Boar Hills in 1883. The final section of this line, linking Boar Hills with St Andrews via Mount Melville, was opened in 1887. In the bigger picture, following the success of the Edinburgh and Glasgow Railway, Scotland's first trunk railway, which opened in 1842, promoters started to think of ambitious schemes for other Scottish lines. The easy availability of money as the economy improved resulted in a frenzy of railway promotion, and the 1845 parliamentary session saw a huge number of authorisations. Among them was the Edinburgh and Northern Railway, which was planned to link Edinburgh and Dundee with a branch to Perth. Bridging the Firth of Forth and Tay was not technologically feasible, and ferry crossings at both ends were to be part of the journey for passengers and for goods. The Edinburgh Northern soon changed its name to the Edinburgh, Perth and Dundee Railway, and it opened its lines progressively in 1847 to 1848. The route ran through Kirkcaldy, Markenge and Ladybank, forking there for Ferryport on Craig, Tayport via Lookers and Perth. The original prospectus for the line had included a branch line from Lookers to St Andrews, but this was dropped from the scheme as actually authorised, and it fell to the local people in St Andrews to build their own branch line from Lookers. Immediately following the authorisation of the Edinburgh and Northern Railway in 1845, a prospectus was issued for an East of Fife Railway. It would either leave the Edinburgh Northern Railway at Thornton and follow the valley of the River Orr, or leave it at Markenge and follow the valley of the River Leven. Either way, the line would pass through Cameron Bridge and run close to the coast as far as Anstruther, a distance of about 20 miles. The capital of the East of Fife Railway Company was to be £250,000, a huge amount for a simple branch line. Supported by prominent local persons, The scheme obtained its authorising Act of Parliament on the 16th of July 1846, adopting the Markenge Junction route. In 1844 to 45, money for railway schemes had been easy to come by. In 1846, the slump had set in, and it was impossible to get subscriptions. Nonetheless, in 1847, the company obtained a further act modifying the route, but soon reality struck home, and in 1850 the company was dissolved. Early plans for a railway to serve Elie included the rather grandly titled Fife Central Junction Railway, which planned a route from Elie Harbour to Ceres via Largo, from where connections would be made to Dundee in the north and Edinburgh in the south, via ferries at Tayport and Burnt Island respectively. A direct ferry service across the Forth from Elie to North Berwick to connect with Carlisle and Berwick was also proposed. In the event, all of this came to naught, as did the East of Fife Railway Perspective of 1845. The southern section of the line was initially promoted by the Leven Railway, which was authorised on the 17th of June 1852 to construct a 6-mile long line from the Edinburgh, Perth and Dundee Railway at Burnmill on the outskirts of Leven. Engineered once again by the penny-pinching Thomas Bouch, the line opened throughout on the 10th of August 1854, following delays that resulted from problems highlighted during the line's Board of Trade inspection. It was operated from the outset by the Edinburgh, Perth and Dundee Railway, although the Leven Railway had by agreement to supply the locomotive. Eastwards from Leven, the line was the responsibility of the East of Fife Railway. As mentioned, this had originally been authorised in 1846 to construct a line from Markenge to Anstruther, but this was amended following an Act of the 23rd of July 1855 for the construction of the 7-mile section from Burnmill to Kilconquhar. This was due to a lack of funding and too few subscribers, so the line was built in 2 stages, Leven to Kilconquhar and Kilconquhar to Anstruther. The first phase opened on the 11th of May 1857, with the new station at Leven replacing that at Burnmill, which was closed. The Leven Railway and the East of Fife Railway merged on the 22nd of July 1861 to form the Leven and East Fife Railway. The new company was authorised to construct the line from Kilconquhar to Anstruther, which opened on the 1st of September 1863 and connected Elie to the National Railway network. Thomas Bouch, who had built the St Andrews Railway and the Leven Railway, had been first choice to build the Leven and East Fife Railway from Leven to Anstruther. Bouch had quoted £58,411 6 shillings 7 pence to build a line from Leven to Anstruther. However, this was far above what could be realistically raised by share subscription and loans. The main subscribers were Sir Ralph Anstruther and John Haig, who were both already directors of the Leven Railway, along with the General Lindsay of Balcarres and William Baird, who had recently acquired the Elie estates. This slide shows section 1, the Leven to Largo, and this slide shows Bouch's section 2, Largo to Kilconquhar. There was some debate about where in Kilconquhar the terminus should be. The original proposal was to terminate the line at a point near Barnyards and extend the line to Anstruther via the north of Kilconquhar Loch. This would have bypassed Elie altogether, and the good people of the borough, along with their most influential resident William Baird, argued that the Kilconquhar terminus should be moved to a site near to the Broomleys tile works, from where the extension could either pass to the south of the loch or deviate a mile or so further southwards to serve Elie. This was also the less expensive option, as it saved crossing the turnpike road, and the land was cheaper, being of lower agricultural value. The East of Fife Railway Act was passed on the 23rd of July 1855, with a subsequent Deviation Act passed on the 5th of June the following year to move the terminus from the original proposal adjoining Conquer village to a new site lying to the north of Muircambus Mill. Construction of the line began promptly, the contractor being Matthew Anderson of Granton and the engineer being Thomas Boucher's assistant, Mr. Martin. Boucher's services having been dispensed with because of a debacle with the leaving railway directors. The formation of the line proceeded rapidly as the topography was easy. The only major works was the 60-foot high 4-arch viaduct over the Keelburn at Largo. Thomas Bouch was an engineer of far-reaching influence who tragically overreached himself. He was born on the 25th of February 1822 in Thursby, near Carlisle, and lived in Edinburgh. As manager of the Edinburgh and Northern Railway, he introduced the first roll-on, roll-off train ferry service in the world, which operated between Granton and Burntisland. The railway came to Burntisland in 1847. From then until the opening of the Forth Bridge in 1890, Burntisland was a terminus of national significance. In that period, the Burntisland-Granton ferry was the principal means of crossing the Forth estuary. The ferry Leviathan plied across the Firth of Forth between Granton and Burntisland, becoming the first floating railway in the world. Subsequently, as a consulting engineer, Bouch helped develop the caisson and popularised the use of lattice girders in railway bridges. He was knighted after the successful completion of the first Tay railway bridge, and his design for a new bridge over the Forth had been accepted and work started. His name, however, is chiefly remembered for the subsequent Tay Bridge disaster of the 28th of December 1879, in which 75 people died as a result of defects in design, construction and maintenance, for all of which Bouch was held responsible. He died within 18 months of being knighted, with his reputation destroyed. Bouch died on the 30th of October 1880 in Moffat, and was buried in Dean Cemetery in Edinburgh. The line from Leven to Kilconquhar opened to the public on the 11th of May 1857. 12 days earlier, a celebratory dinner had been held at Kilconquhar Brickworks, attended by those who travelled on the first train. The opening services comprised of 4 trains in each direction daily. During the early months of operation, the passenger receipts far exceeded all anticipations, a bit like when the new Borders line opened. This spurred on directors to start work on the extension to Anstruther. Due to the low take-up of shares, William Baird had been asked to increase his original subscription of £6,000, which he did with an extra £2,000. This gave him, as by far the major shareholder, some influence, and the line was built through Elie via St Ford. Plans for the extension were drawn up by engineer John Moffat and show an interesting loop coming into Elie and running along part of the shoreline. And this slide shows the detail of the proposed route along Elie Shore. This slide shows the line of the railway as per the parliamentary plan. Note St Ford, Elie School, Wadesley Farm and Elie House. The building of the extension line to Anstruther was let in 3 contracts, from Kilconquhar to Ardross to Pittenweem, and Pittenweem to Anstruther Wester. John Sang of Kirkcaldy was the engineer and built all 3 sections. A large portion of the rails was delivered to Elie Harbour in 2 vessels, and other building materials came in through Anstruther. On completion, the line was inspected by Colonel Yolland Royal Engineers from the Board of Trade on the 13th of August 1863 and opened for passenger traffic on the 1st of September. During the intervening 2 weeks, goods traffic had been allowed to operate to consolidate the track ballast and allow time for other defects such as issues with fencing to be rectified, known as snagging in today's terms. So, at last and after some delay, Elie finally had its station and was connected to the National Rail network. This was a momentous occasion and considerable crowds assembled to witness the novelty of a railway in operation. The original station at Elie was similar to all the others on the line, rather primitive, a single platform with a simple building. The exception was London Link Station, which was built by a local contractor and had a more upmarket double gable building. In 1877, the North British Railway Company took over the Elie and East Fife Railway, and around the turn of the 20th century they improved most stations along the line by adding passing loops and additional platforms with better buildings. Passing loops were not installed at Kilconquhar or Pittenweem though. The two road bridges in Elie carrying the A917 over the railway were also strengthened and girders replaced. Elie had a goods yard with 4 sidings along with a small dock platform with a 3-ton crane. There was also a large water tower which was relocated to the end of the newly extended down platform in 1900 as seen on this slide. Elie was the only source of water for locomotives between Cameron Bridge and Anstruther. 1899 saw the introduction of telephone communication between Thornton and Anstruther. The North British Railway also spent a lot of time and effort in promoting the 5 coast seaside resorts, including Elie. 1899 had been the busiest year to date, and the NBR considered doubling the line as far as Elie, although this never happened. An extra loop was installed at Kilconquhar West to relieve pressure, especially during the summer season when trains were longer and more frequent. These two pictures, separated by 50 years or so, show the changes that happened in this time. In 1898, a loop line long enough to take 30 wagons was added and Elie became a crossing place. Other changes can be spotted: improved ramp access, removal of the drinking fountain, an extended toilet, replacement of the NBR style signal post. In the lower photograph can be seen the 2 camping coaches which were sited at Elie. Camping coaches were introduced around the country in the early 1950s. Elie and London links received 1 each in 1953 and 1 was installed at St Monans the following year. This slide shows the camping coach at St Monans on the bottom right and Elie above. The second camping coach was placed at Elie from 1956 to 63. At the end of each season the coaches were taken through to St Rollox in Glasgow for an annual overhaul. This is another view of a camping coach at Elie and also shows some great detail in the west end of the station: the footbridge, vehicle access on both sides, the height of the signals, the water column, the check rails and the catch points. For over a century the line served the East Neuk of Fife and carried coal, fish, farmers and tourists along its length. Many local people have happy memories travelling on the line, whether to shops or school in Anstruther or further afield to Edinburgh, Glasgow and Dundee. This slide shows Elie Station during the last decade of operation. By this time the line had passed to the Scottish region of British Railways from the LNER on nationalisation in 1948. The LNER, or London and North Eastern Railway, had been formed as one of the big 4 railway companies in 1923 when the North Railway was absorbed into that new company. The line between Leven and St Andrews was closed to passengers on the 6th of September 1964 as part of the reshaping of British Railways, Dr. Beeching's infamous report of 1963, which changed the face of transport in the UK forever. It is worth mentioning that other intermediate stations between St Andrews and Crail, Mount Melville, Strathvithy, Boar Hills and Kings Barnes, had by this time already lost their passenger services, having closed in 1930. In the early 1960s, British Railways was failing to stem huge for a remedy. His task was to save money by recommending the cutting of redundant routes and services. His 2 reports, The Reshaping of British Railways in 1963 and The Development of Major Railway Trunk Routes in 1965, were published by the British Railways Board and offer a fascinating snapshot of our nation's railways. The Reshaping report envisaged the closure of the line between St Andrews and Leven, but with the sections from St Andrews to Lookers and from Leven to Thornton Junction retaining their passenger services. Guardbridge Station, between Lookers and St Andrews, was also scheduled to close. Passenger services over the St Andrews to Leven section, with the surviving intermediate stations Crail, Anstruther, Pittenweem William, St Monnans, Ely, Kilconquhar, Largo and London links closed on the 6th of September 1965, as did Guardbridge. Goods services between Crail and St Andrews were withdrawn the same. Freight traffic between Leven and Crail ceased on the 18th of July 1966. St Andrews closed on the 6th of January 1969, and from Thornton Junction to Leven on the 6th of October the same year. Continuing freight traffic from Thornton Junction to